Hello. Would be easy if everyone would like to sit down so that we could get on. It's already 3:30. Probably already 3:30. Well, while everyone's sitting back down, yeah, I think this was, at least for me, one of the first tech conferences in Australia where there were 4 female speakers and only 2 male speakers. we tried to get that balance even for the panel discussion, but unfortunately things didn't work out as we planned. Well, by the way of introduction, I'm Gishan Mahandar, one of the organizers for today's event. I came in a bit late though. So yeah, I am a software engineer, have been writing code professionally for, I don't know how long, 16, 17 years by now. And yeah, a lot about me. Let's get into the panel discussion. The topic is, what does the future of AI hold for us? And we have 3 amazing panelists. I would introduce them one by one. First, we have Rev. She's a data scientist at DoorDash. We have worked together at The Iconic. She's amazing. She has been a QA engineer, then a software engineer, and then went into data, and then became a data scientist. So basically, she knows all the stack, from what I know. Next, we have Anish. He is a software engineer by day and an entrepreneur software engineer by the night. He is the CEO, the CTO, and everything for Dreamery AI, and the software engineer as well. That's a startup that changes profile pictures or pictures of some sort. I'll let him explain that in a bit. Last but not the least, we have Gitarth. He is a software engineer AI at DroneShield. Last year, he was volunteering here, probably as just a pass out or a student. And yeah, I have not seen someone, how do I put it, make strides in 12 months like him. Let's put it that way. So yeah, the topic today is, what does the future of AI hold for us? I'll not waste much time and then go directly to one of the questions. What I want to do, or what I want to do as a moderator, is I'll direct one question to only one person in the, what's the advantage of the time, basically to save the time. The first question I have, and probably many of us have here, is, will AI take our jobs, or Gen AI take our jobs in the next 3 to 5 years? I'll probably direct it to Rev.
Okay.
Sorry.
There's a switch on the top.
That one. Mute or mute, yes.
Yeah, it should be fine. It should be fine. Yeah, I think it works now. Yeah, cool. Yeah, so thank you, Gishan, for the introduction, and I'm happy to be part of this panel and happy to answer the first question. So, will AI take our jobs? I think that's one of the questions that normally everyone is worried about and everyone gets. I don't think AI is going to actually take our jobs. It's probably going to be a lift and shift. So what's probably going to happen is, like, AI is going to make a lot of our jobs easier. So probably we just need to reskill ourselves, and the AI is just going to make our jobs more efficient. So I think some of the jobs that are existing now becomes redundant, but then what's going to happen is kind of like, it's going to create another set of jobs. So there's always a level of upskilling that needs to happen with everyone. So anyone who is actually ready to learn and get adapted to the new things, I think there should be a job for us in the future as well. So I think where the AI needs to equate to human intelligence, that's probably going to take a few years down the lane, or maybe it's never going to be reaching that stage where it can match it. So until that stage comes, I feel like job should be there. It's just a lift and shift in what needs to happen.
That's a pretty good answer. Thank you. Another question that's on my list is for Anish. Do you use any coding assistants like GitHub Copilot in your day-to-day job? If you do you think it helps? And like, Do you think that's our future? Is it going to be part of our day-to-day thing?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, I mean, as a software engineer, my day-to-day job involves just 60% of the time I'm coding and investigating. So, and Copilot is integrating my ID. So, yeah, I'm just using it every time. And I'm using it as a Copilot. I don't totally rely on the output. So sometimes it gets in the way. But, yeah, I mean, everyone can relate. But, yeah, I just use it as a co-pilot, literally, and whenever there are some repetitive tasks or some boring tasks that I can just describe, and if it is quicker to describe and get output, then I just do that with Copilot. So yeah, I just use it as Copilot, and yes, and I think yes, it is. So I see even in my company and everyone is adapting to Copilot, and I think it's going to be one of the the tool that developers use in their daily usage. So yeah.
Thank you. This one is for Gitarth. How can you use Gen AI today to enhance your productivity?
That's a good one. To enhance your productivity, first thing first, you should know how Gen AI works and until what capability it could essentially give you a response which is correct and legitimate. So there are certain limitations to Gen AI. One of the biggest limitation is it hallucinates a lot. Most of the Gen AI we have now, the models, are very much limited to a niche. Potentially their training data is mixed of very general questions and not very specific domains. So for example, if you want to learn an algorithm or something which is very complex, a new research paper or something, it wouldn't be there in your model. You could provide that data to the model and hope for a proper answer, but you might have to really get back to it and validate it. So just in terms of enhancing productivity, you could use Gen AI to perform tasks which are basic, which require a lot of manual labor. So let's say writing emails, setting up your calendar, planning your day, or probably generating skeleton code if you want to, if your workplace allows to using Gen AI. Locally hosted works as well. But you should not rely on Gen AI completely to do everything for you.
Thank you. This is to Rev. How can we separate the hype, the news, from the reality about AI or Gen AI? I think that's one of the difficult things to do. So, what would you suggest having a better insider look to it?
Yeah, I think, especially in the world where we are living with so much connectivity and things like that, it's super easy for someone to actually put out something be generated with Gen AI or be released with some hidden agendas. It's a part of our responsibility as well to understand ethically and socially what is getting shared and how to actually find the proper source of truth before we get it shared across to our platforms as well. So I think there is a narrow. I think Oscar was actually touch basing on it in terms of responsible AI thing. So that's one of the pieces that's going to be more prominent in the coming days, where you have these different open source models. People can use it for different things and you can get intended or unintended results. So the responsible AI part, I think there is a lot that we can do at individual levels, like checking the source of truth and adding kind of the guardrails on top of what we are predicting and things like that. But at the same time, it's a community effort that happens as well. So I would see actually a lot of new developments or new startups or whatever is actually going to be emerging out of that area, because going forward, that would be one of the main probably limitations of what capabilities can these models be utilized for.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, what I actually meant there was, for instance, someone who has never worked in AI, has never or doesn't even know that a Gen AI model is basically a calculator for words, is going to predict that yeah, they're good, like Gen AI or LLMs are going to take our jobs, I don't know, in the next 3 years with certainty. How would you separate that kind of a, how would I put it, fluff, or I don't know, how do I put that word, compared to reality, which is, as I said, as far as I understand, like LLMs are basically a calculator for words at this point. I cannot say what will happen in 3 years. So how do you separate like this, the substance and the fluff, or the, I don't know how to put it, like just the news?
Yeah, I would say like the first thing is probably like getting to know the latest updates and things like that, and be just not follow, like you need to actually figure out which are the source of truth when it comes to like believing what is actually right and wrong. Because if you look at even at the AI level of things, you know, like there are certain like channels or like whatever media that you are following that might be actually providing you with the right set of truth. And I find it question right relevant at this stage, because if you go back, at least that's from my personal experience, if I go back to my parents, like they do have this social media kind of like forwards that they get, they kind of like believe in it, and I just tell them they are not true. But to that generation, it's quite hard to convince them, in the sense that they had actually been exposed to a set of media where everything was actually reported true, or at least 70% was true, whereas today maybe like 20% is true compared to like what it was. So I think the key point from our generation as well, like either to the older one or to the younger one, both are actually vulnerable to that. So the key thing is like to let them know what exact the sources that you want to actually like believe in, and to have that open conversations with both like upstream and downstream, to know like this is what is happening and this is what your viewpoint as well, to make sure that they are able to identify what is actually right and wrong. And this is just at our personal level, but at a community level, I think when you have these kind of discussions happening at a community level, it provides them with much more like right information about like, okay, this is coming from a reliable source, this is not coming from a reliable source. So I think that kind of community education also need to happen, and it's coming there, but I think it might be more relevant in the coming ages. Like, yeah, that's what I feel like.
Makes sense. Probably, I don't know, Anish, how well equipped are you to answer this, but what's your view on basically the copyright aspect of Gen AI, basically LLMs picking up someone else's work, remixing it, or recreating it, and then, yeah, we have seen probably lawsuits by now where, yeah, bigger companies have filed lawsuits against LLMs and stuff. What's your view on that?
So on copyright, like first thing is like before training such like language models or any kind of like models, you have to like ask permission for, if that is not like publicly available data set, then you should definitely ask permission and only train on those data. And yeah, if not that, then yeah, I mean basically like we should, like everyone like who is training models should do that. And like there are, yeah, as you said, like there have been lawsuits and stuff. So I think that is because there are no such like high quality data available for like developers to train on, and due to lack of that, like there is no federation in the data, and due to lack of that, they have been trained on whatever available in the internet, like a huge chunk of internet, and that created these lawsuits. But I think like these generative AI models, like they are all like probabilistic models, and it's not like they are just outputting exactly what the source is. Like they are generative, and they're like probabilistic models. So I mean, I don't know. Yeah, it's just my take on like it shouldn't be there. So yeah, basically.
Super, sounds nice. Yeah, probably for Gitarth, something that's related to where he works. In addition to not cybersecurity, the real physical security and defense, do you see any other areas where AI is underused now, and Gen AI is underused now and can be used better?
Well, yeah, there are a lot of areas where AI is underused in an industry such as defense. Reason for that is essentially the transparency of Gen AI models which are available off the shelf. Mostly defense companies operate with less staff and less resources because it is very dynamic world, and defense is one of the fields where you could actually get, let's say you are sort of selling a product and it gets outdated in less than 24 hours because something else overtook the product in terms of tech, because we're always countering something, or we're making something such as a gun or anything else. And it's always changing. So we don't have that time that, okay, we'll wait 6 months to develop something and use it. So the moment Gen AI or any other AI would become very transparent that, okay, that's open source, trained on open data, that's the data set we trained on, that's the model we're using, you could use it locally, people would start using AI in all of their tasks for defense. But if I had to go towards telling you aspects of where we are not using AI, except cybersecurity, is essentially programming. Most defense companies do not use AI yet. On the top of it, we are also not using AI for planning, which is where AI would be really useful, but we're not using it. And in terms of kinetic warfare, we do employ AI, but it's local. So it's trained on a very less data set, a smaller one, and it's used on edge devices. So we do use AI there, but there's a lot of scope in there, which is what I would call edge deployment.
Yeah, sounds good. This is a question probably I'll ask to all three and then open it up for the audience to ask questions. My question is, how do you keep up with all the AI advancement that's happening? At least for me, what I do is I listen to a podcast called Practical AI that kind of separates the noise from the signal, at least for me. But yeah, I'd just like a short answer from every one of you on how do you keep up with all these advancements, and then I'll open it to the floor. Rev, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of hype around because with the introduction of LLMs, I feel like the speed at which all these models are getting released is like quite unbelievable, in the sense like every week you have these new models coming up, so it's quite hard to actually like figure out, okay, what exactly you want to learn and things like that. But I would say, like, especially for the students and who are getting into AI, just take a step back, basically understand the basics first. Like, you know, one of the things in the previous presentation was like attention is always need. So I would actually ask everyone who is interested in LLMs to have a read of that paper, not at granular details, but at least what that architecture actually does and how is it actually like providing so much capability. So understanding the basic is the first thing that I would do if I was going to get into this field at this point in time. Then it makes our life much more easier. So with all these models coming in, they all have kind of like similar architecture, so it's quite easy to actually know what exactly changed between these models. So getting the basics right is the first thing that I would do. The second thing is like, I know you follow podcasts, but I do listen to podcasts, but maybe something unrelated to machine learning and things like that. So for me, how I keep up with the trend is like, I do have like few people whom I follow in social media platforms. And
any specific names?
Yeah, so I keep following like few people in Hugging Face, like some of the prominent ones. So they are quite good at reporting all the new events that happens and things like that. So Hugging Face, I just took it as an example. So there are a few other companies as well that I follow. So that's one thing that I normally do. So at the start of the day, if there is actually an update coming up from someone, I would know like, okay, this is actually in the market. So it helps me understand, okay, even though I might not dwell into it at that point in time, I would make a point of it and then go back to it at some point. So each person have got different ways in which they want to actually like keep up with the latest news and things like that. For me, that is actually something that always works. And the first point that I raised, like getting the basics right. So if a new model comes out which has a complete different architecture, let's say transformers is actually not going to be there in, maybe some advanced form of transformer is going to be coming in like next 2 years or say, I would first try to understand that architecture first, which then makes it much more easier to have all these learnings. Then that's the thing that's going to take more time probably.
Yeah, Anish.
I also like, I have like different approach on this. Like first I follow like some of my idol people, like to name, I follow Andre Carpate. He is like my idol, and I idolize him. And so I just follow like genuine people who are actually working in the AI industry and actually contributing to the community. Yeah, not just to the like proprietary community, but like the open source community as well. So yeah, I follow him and some other guy like another name is like J.R. Lamar. If you guys don't know these guys, they are really great. So I just follow them. They also have YouTube channels, and I just get my updates from them. And another thing that I do is, as a developer, like I like implementing whatever is out there, not like literally implementing, but if it is implementable, then I do that. Else, like I just look at all the news that's happening via Reddit. I rigorously like look at Reddit a lot, and so there's this local llama subreddit. If you guys don't know, check it out. Like all the research that's happening right now with all the open weights model, like few open source, like all the open weights model, they are implementing like different inference pipeline for them. Even like this llama CPP was like, it came out from there, like one of the guys from there, and like a lot of things. So I just keep myself updated with Reddit and these few guys, and I just implement things. So that's how I get all the.
Yeah, before I ask Gitarth, please keep your questions ready on top of mind. After this, I'm going to open it up to the floor.
Okay, so just to bring things to the picture, we want to know how to keep us up to date with the latest advancements in AI. There are certain things we could do. Number one is podcasts, but still, if you do podcasts, you should know who is speaking and how legitimate they are. Next is some newsletters, which you could sign up. One good newsletter I follow is Hacker News, and there's one more, TLDR. You could follow those newsletters. They usually publish a nice blurb of what the advancement is, and a link to the sources of where the news is coming from.
Yep.
Also link to the research papers if there are any. So you could get to the source of the information and also understand what's happening. On the top of this, you could also check out, so whenever you get some information, you could essentially go and check out the research paper or use case and application of that information, and then validate whether it's correct or not. That is what I do. But my go-to for all the information is subscribing to some legitimate newsletters, which just gives you what happened in the last 24 hours every day. Every morning at 8 o'clock, you would get an email saying that.
The floor is open. Please raise your hand for questions.
Thank you for the opportunity to ask questions. Thanks for the talk. Get to learn, a lot. My question is basically like, given the fact that OpenAI has been bought by Microsoft, and now Apple has integrated ChatGPT to its new, Apple Intelligence. Now I think they're given the data lake of Apple themselves and Microsoft. OpenAI is going to be this crystal ball of an AI. How will Gemini find itself competing against, two of the largest tech company in the entire world?
Who wants to answer?
Okay, you can go.
Yeah,
ahead.
I can go. I think it's always probably it's a very well framed question. I would say, like nobody would have seen it coming, like where Apple started integrating that thing, where now Microsoft has got actually all this access to this thing. So I would say a data access is one of the key things. Having the right set of training data is what you need probably for the performance of whatever models that you are doing. But then if you actually think about it in a larger scale, you have this Gen AI piece as well, which can probably generate data out of whatever training data that set you have. So it's kind of like finding a balance between what are the latest things and what are the things that you want to train on. So of course, with the availability of the data being with the one platform is going to be like a monopoly, that's going to happen. But I'm pretty sure that the other space, I'm not going to name it, probably the other space has also got like all the available, because they have a history of like doing deep learning from over a decade now. So they do have the source of information as well. So I'm pretty sure that there is something in their pipeline that's probably going to come out in the next 1 or 2 years, which would probably balance out this availability of this data.
Yeah, Oscar in his speech also, he was saying that the AI is not supposed to be owned by, like big tech. It needs to be sort of distributed across the entire, so that people have like democratic things. So.
Yes, exactly. But then if you think about all the open source models, like there are a lot of open source models, but if you actually look at, are they have open source the data that they have used for training these models? No, nobody actually does that, right? So even if we all tell that it's in all fairness, we should have access to these things, everyone is actually like aware about like what their limitations are as a company, because after all, they do exist as a business as well. So with the OpenAI, Microsoft, Apple thing, I think it's like a special weird situation that basically happened when OpenAI moved into Microsoft. There has been actually a lot of, you would have read in the news as well, like there has been actually a lot of like associated things with regards to responsible AI and things like being talked about. So it's an interesting space to watch, at least that's what I would say. I might not have a definite answer as of now, like how they are going to deal with that, but I would say it's an interesting space to watch. But with the responsible AI part going in, like getting more significance across a lot of main people as well who are leading this charge, I'm pretty sure that like there should be something that's happening in the coming years.
Thank you for answering that very well. Yeah.
I'm just itching to answer that. So basically, I think even in the past 2 years, Google went from having 94% of the search engine market to by now 91%. And probably that answers most of your question. Anyone else? Any other question?
No one has a question. I'll ask a question.
Yeah. After you.
Thanks for spending your time coming, answering questions and the presentation. So clearly there's a lot of code assist tools like the Microsoft Copilot, etc., and AWS has got its code assist. Do you come across any sort of issues with the copyright? So has there any been like people sort of said, well, okay, just use our internal stuff? So for example, startups, they are often running and using code assist. Is there when they try to register their copyright, or who owns the copyright then?
Anyone who wants to take that? Gitarth?
Well, I could take that. Essentially, when it comes to copyright, it depends on whether the code is original or not. So if you have an AI model which is trained on data which is private, for example, some GitHub repositories or some Stack Overflow which have license which is private, or let's say GPL, general public license, which asks you to do whatever you do and make it open to public. If the model is trained on such data, it is highly likely that some percentage of the output every time you ask a query would be from the training data. And if it is the case, the copyright goes to the person who has written the code which is being modified and given back to you, or the license terms gets attached to it. Now, AI doesn't know where it's getting that data from. So definitely, yes, you would get into copyright problems if somebody knows what is their bit of code. Well, that's a gray area. But the solution to this is you could train a model on open source data, or the big giants must release some models which are strictly trained on open source data which people could use. And that would solve a problem of copyright because it's trained on open source data which everyone could use, some documentation, and probably you could locally fine tune it with more data if you want, and then use it. That is how you could avoid getting into that copyright black hole and save yourself out of it. Because I work in a startup, we usually have those legal meetings when we think of using AI, but this is the only problem where we stop, or we decide to locally host our own AI trained on our own data sets and use that instead of using the available models off the shelf.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Next question. You're too far.
Hello, thank you everyone. Thank you for taking the questions, and thank you for giving me the time. It's been a very informative session so far. I just want to ask, as the panel discussion, what does the future of AI hold for us? So as the panelists and as industrialists, I just want to ask, how has the AI journey been in the company, and how have you started integrating AI? How is everyone has a dilemma whether to start using or whether to not. So in the future, it's about every company or everyone starting to use it. So I would like to know about your journey. How did you start integrating them into your company? Yeah.
Who wants to take it?
I can take that then.
Go.
So first thing you asked about journey, right? My journey or company?
Just the journey in total. Suppose I think Dreamery.ai is directly an AI company. Yeah, but there are some company where they don't have an AI in the starting, but they start integrating on the store. Yeah. So I just want to know your personal journey and even the company's journey, maybe. Yeah.
Sorry, just to rephrase. I think what he means is, let's say if I'm a retail e-commerce company, how would AI integrate into my general company's workflows?
Yeah, like that. And personal, if DoorDash is using AI in their company, so I want to know how did you go on to start integrating it? What were the thoughts? And how did you start on it?
Yeah, probably Anish could start, and then you could add whatever you would like.
Yeah, I can just answer in general. For personal journey, if you are just starting as a developer or as a student, then of course now AI is AI and machine learning is a lot of hype there. So you should definitely pursue it and just start from somewhere, so that you start your journey. And so I myself started as a software engineer way back, and after that I started looking into building models and creating contents on tutorials about machine learning. And after that, that's why I got hired to Fuse Machines back in Nepal as a machine learning engineer. And yeah, since then my machine learning journey started. I learned a lot in my company, and after that again I'm again back as software engineer here in Australia. So yeah, we just have to start somewhere as a personal journey. For companies, what I can say is, so there's this a simple kind of thing is, instead of solving something, you just solve AI and let AI solve that. So right now, generative AI and all the other all the generative AI, basically Gen AI is in hype, and people were able to solve Gen AI. Now Gen AI is solving all the repetitive tasks, automation tasks, even writing, image generation, so many things. So any company who has that on their pipeline, let's say they are doing something with the documentation, or they have got some, I don't know, some small startup making thumbnails out of thumbnails, generating thumbnails for them, small businesses. So they can just integrate generative AI and they can just start with it if that fits in their pipeline. So yeah.
Yeah, Rev.
Yeah, so for any retail, having worked in both retail and DoorDash, it's different industry, but for all these online present companies, data is actually one of the main money, in virtual money, I would say. So when you want to start using this AI, and AI has got actually a lot of applications and things like that, the first thing that you want to make sure is kind of your data is not being publicized somewhere. So you are kind of limited in utilizing this open source products until you have a localized version of it. So that's the first thing all these companies do. So they do utilize these open source kind of like models, but they will have hosted it in their internal like space where the data stays within the company, like wherever you are actually doing. So that's the first thing normally people do, like in these companies. And use cases, it can be as imaginative as you would actually use it for your day-to-day scenarios. So how you go about utilizing AI for a particular sector or a particular application is you just first start with a MVP kind of thing, and there are different teams focusing on different areas of business. So they try to actually incorporate AI to make sure that there is actually something that improves efficiency, speed, or something. Then they actually like put out the first version, see how it performs, and if it's actually performing better than what we have at the moment, they try to productionize things. So that's how the path for AI normally happens in the applications. I'm not going to actually talk about like specific examples of where we are using it at the moment, but primarily like that's how the internalization and then putting out an MVP is what we normally do. And that's for the application side of things, which is open for users. But then you have got this application for AI for internal users as well, in terms of how you can improve the life of people as the employees of that company. Like there are different aspects in which AI can pretty much be used. One is kind of like improving your HR experience in terms of like some of the commonly asked things. Then you have Confluence, like most of the companies would have Confluence, which are kind of like beast in some cases because they have got these massive documentations that's sitting somewhere. So some of the use cases can be related to that. Like if I'm a new person joining the company, and it's going to be really hard to actually figure out what are the right set of information I need to be actually aware of. So these are some of the use cases that like AI can be helpful for the internal employees as well. So yeah, if that answers like, yeah.
So just a couple of things to add. One, don't hammer the screw. By that I mean don't use AI just for the sake of AI. Yeah. Find the problem, find the solution, and maybe AI is part of the solution. Can be used as part of the solution, number one. Number two, having worked in e-commerce for 10 years, I mean, AI was there. Earlier, probably it was used just for classification. Is it a shoe? Is it a t-shirt? And now it is probably being used to do more sophisticated stuff. But the problem is still the same. If you see a product, you want to see related products, right? Now, if you have something that's AI related that can help you solve the problem, use it. As I said, don't inject it just for the sake of saying we are AI-enabled company. So I think that's where the crux of the matter lies.
And I want to add one more thing to it. So that point actually raised an interesting thing, like you should like, not everything is about actually like ChatGPT and things like that. So yeah, you have this data that's actually available to you. Then you have these traditional models which are very much relevant and like practical for a lot of applications as well. So you don't need actually like to include deep learning or like any of the fancy models to get the basic things working. And I don't know like how many of you know there is actually other branch of machine learning models as well which are particularly effective in causal inference. So causal inference is actually something where pretty much you basically is relevant in e-commerce. Like let's say you are shown a green or a blue button, what is actually that's going to attract users. So you don't need actually deep learning or anything to know that. So it's pretty causal inference, that the basics of causal inference that's going to help you actually answer those questions. So I want to actually make sure that it's not just all these ChatGPTs and Gen AI that's actually AI is like, it has also those traditional things and that's pretty much relevant and used across all these companies as well. So the new advances of ChatGPT are a smaller portion and it's well advancing. I'm not saying that you shouldn't focus on it, but there is this section that exists and very relevant in the, like practically relevant at this point in time as well. So.
Yeah, we were categorizing images 10 years back.
I'll just give a follow-up question. Like, it's what I want to ask. Another question is related to like the generative AI models and the companies that are selling the products as an API or a cloud interface program, like say Azure in cloud or the GCP Gemini as a pro version. They say like if you take the pro version, then your data will be safe. But like a lot of people are still hesitant to take it over because of the data residency and data governance issues. So I just want to know like how much of that is actually like really genuine, that the data that you are giving into the generative AI when you take the pro version will not be used by the company, but it will be internal and it will be private?
Gitarth, probably?
Well, my company doesn't provide software as a service.
Of course, yeah.
But if it is in the terms and conditions, they really have those words mentioned exactly in the terms and conditions and privacy policy. If you read it carefully, you would actually know if there are any loopholes where they could use your data. So it is on the user to read the privacy policy and terms and conditions before accepting. There could also be linked privacy policies and terms and conditions, that this service also uses some other service which uses some other service, and each of them have their own terms and conditions and privacy policies. And if you actually end up reading those, you would know whether your data is actually being stored privately or being used for training.
Right. Thank you.
Sorry, I missed to mention ChatGPT earlier. So, when we talk to customers, because we're talking to a lot of developers as well, ChatGPT comes as a massive risk, or any Gen AI, because developers are, have their set of code, and then they're trying to do new things, and they're like, has anybody else done it? And here's my code, right? So, and that's, you talk to banks, you talk to universities, like your intellectual property is leaving the organization. So we work with a lot of organizations to block ChatGPT. So you go to ChatGPT, but you can't copy. So it's all only pixelated version. Like my laptop, I can't copy and paste on ChatGPT. So there's the pro version and the free version, but I think there's when it comes to data and leakage of data, there's a shared responsibility. And as you mentioned, Gitarth, it's like there's terms and conditions, and you're making an agreement with that organization, but they might have third-party agreements, and you don't know where that's going. So a lot of organizations actually block that. And that's not just in Australia, because I look after Japan and Singapore, India. Singapore happening all the time, and Japan as well. India, haven't come across that much, but it will come as well. Yeah. Sorry, I thought I'll add to that.
All good, all good.
Yeah.
A baseline, probably hire an amazing lawyer who knows about AI. Any more questions? Probably this will be the last one that we take. We're at 4:16, so yeah, the last one that we take. Okay, there.
Hi, thank you so much for your discussions and your answers. I just have a quick question on hallucinations on ChatGPT and things like that. I'm not so much familiar, I've just used it, like I don't know the back ends of it, but like, as we know, like the AI is like so advanced right now, how much of it is an issue, like, and like what sort of like concepts of hallucinations does it have?
Do you want to ask, like, how do you remediate that?
Yeah, the mitigations and like how intense is the problem, and then
Anyone who wants to take it?
I could take that. So just to remediate hallucinations, the best thing you could do is ask very specific questions or prompts with very specific details. If you have some bit of context, provide the context. Check what is the context length for its memory. Each model has a different memory context length, and based on that, it's going to remember what conversation you were doing. And that memory context length in models like ChatGPT in the free version is very low. So if it has already answered something, let's say 2 or 3 conversations prior, it is highly likely that it's not going to remember it entirely. So you might have to give the context back to it rather than asking, oh, you answered this earlier, based on that I have another follow-up question, and give the response. It's going to hallucinate, it's going to generate fake information. While if you would have provided that this is what you answered, now tell me more on this aspect, it's going to answer properly. So you need to ask more specific questions with proper context to get relevant answers from any Gen AI without hallucination, or with as minimum hallucination as possible.
Anyone else wants to take on that, and then probably we'll wrap up.
I can answer a little
Go
bit
ahead.
on what she said. Like she asked about, she doesn't know the back end of it. So so these large language models, they are just a fancy kind of next token prediction models. So given one token, it just makes itself aware of like what should happen next, and it's just predicting that. So that's why like there are high chance of hallucination if like context length, it exceeds context length and so on. So in backend, yeah, it's just so it's ChatGPT and other LLMs right now, they are like autoregressive model. It just takes your first token and repeats like it autoregressively like takes that and makes itself a context aware and predicts next token and so on. So they are just very good models trained on very like nice kind of data and like nice kind of human feedback. So that's how it works.
Probably something by Rev, and then we close.
Oh, on the similar.
Yeah, on the same thing.
I think context is actually like very much relevant, and where I don't know like whether you guys had that issue. So I normally try to play around with ChatGPT with the code pieces just to see where it kinds of like breaks. So and I've had like weird situations where I know that code is wrong, but it tells me with that level of confidence that no, this code is actually the right piece of code. You are probably in the wrong space. So yeah, so you just need to know these limitations as well. The providing context definitely helps with that hallucination effect, but then with the ChatGPTs and things, as Gitarth actually pointed out, it's getting a piece of code from your training data as well. So it's good. It's as good as what it's actually trained on, and it's actually good. That's why we are using it so far, right? But there are actually some fields or some niche areas where it still needs to be developed more, or the data is actually not. The trained data is actually not that like 100% right. So yeah, still be like really careful about like how we utilize it. It cannot be like, or most of the cases it's 99% right. Maybe that 1% it's actually wrong, and just need to watch out for that.
Yeah, the very important 1%. I think we'll close at this point. Thanks everyone for being the panelists. Thanks to all the organizers, all the volunteers, and every one of you who have attended. Thank you.
Thank you.